Hi, I'm Jason Durrow. I'm the author of the epic fantasy Teshavar series, and I'm here to help you get unstuck. If you're anything like most of the first-time authors I hear from and talk to, you have trouble finishing a book. It might be that you've been writing the same book for years and years and you still haven't reached the end and the end is nowhere in sight. Or it might be that you have started 10, 15, 20 different books and you just can't get past the first quarter, the first half of them. You just can't get to the end of one of them before you start getting ideas and switching to another one. Whatever the case may be, I have 4 tips that might help you get unstuck. And I'll warn you ahead of time that some of these might be a little unconventional, and they kind of got me in trouble on Book Talk when I proposed them because there was a lot of resistance to a couple of them. But I'll list them out. Let's see how they go over here. The first thing is, if you are not an outliner, if you're somebody who is a discovery writer, that is, you like to write and sort of make it up as you go along and you don't follow a path, you don't follow a pre-established outline, you might want to try outlining and just see how it goes. Figure out in advance what your story is going to be about, figure out the main beats in it, the beginning, middle, and end, and actually outline it out. You might outline to the chapter level. You might do like I do and outline to the actual scene level where you know in every scene what characters are going to show up, what conversations need to happen, and how that's going to move the story forward. If you have an outline that works, then when you sit down to write, you'll know what the next scene is that you need to write, and you won't get stuck trying to figure that out. Now, I know a lot of people are just purely discovery writers. They're purely pantsers. They don't want to outline something because it takes the joy out of writing for them. They want to make it up as they go along, and I totally respect that. I'm a big outliner myself, but I know there are different kinds of writers, so I'm not saying to change everything about the way you write. Do what works for you, but if you're getting stuck and it is because you don't know what to write next, or if you're getting into sort of a spiral where you have written to a point and you just can't get past it, outlining might help just to try it and see how it goes. It might surprise you, or you might hate it and you want to just go straight back to discovery writing, which is perfectly fine. The second tip that I want to give you is to give yourself permission to write garbage, to write absolute trash for your first draft, because it's the first draft. Nobody else has to see that draft. And there's a common saying, I think it might have originally been from Terry Pratchett, said that the first time you write the book, you're telling the story to yourself. The second time you write it, you're telling it to the reader. And I kind of believe that myself. When I write, I intend for the first draft to be something that nobody sees other than me. It's complete garbage. It would not be something I would show to anyone. I'm ashamed of it. I feel like it's just awful, and by the time I finish it, I'm like, why do people read anything that I write? But the goal is to get the story down so that you have something to work with later to edit and go back and revise and make it into the book that you want it to be. The way that I think of doing a first draft is like if you're trying to sculpt something out of clay. Doing the first draft is you just throw the clay down on the table and it's just a lump there and you're getting it in place so you can work with it. The revision process when you're editing is when you actually sculpt it into the sculpture that it's going to be. And likewise, the revision process is when you mold the book, you edit the book, you revise things and change them around. You move chapters around, you remove scenes, you add characters, and you massage things into the form that you want the book to be. The first draft is just a starting place, and it's supposed to be bad. So the number 2 tip is to allow yourself to write garbage for the first draft. The third tip that I have for you is kind of connected to the second one, and it's a way to keep yourself propelled forward while you're writing that garbage first draft. And it's to continually tell yourself that no matter what you put down on the page, it's going to be okay because you can change it later. And as you do that, keep yourself from editing as you go. Don't stop after you write a scene and go back and fix the scene before you move on, because that'll slow you down too much, and that's the point where most of the people that I hear from who have trouble finishing a book end up not finishing it is because they will write part of the first draft and then they'll go back and continually iterate over that, trying to edit and revise it until that scene is perfect before they move forward into the next scene. And it's impossible to do that because nothing's going to be perfect. And I think of it as almost a waste of time because when you're doing the editing, when you're revising, the first thing you're likely to do is to do major structural changes. You'll change scenes, you'll take out whole sections of it, you'll alter chapters, and the part that you spent so much time revising to make it perfect you might end up just needing to cut that whole thing out of the book. So you're better off if you allow yourself to write the whole first draft and just do whatever you need to do to propel yourself through it, get it all down, and don't go back and edit it until you have finished that. Now, that's not to say as you're typing, if you have a typo, it's okay to backspace and just fix a word. Some people would disagree with that, but I think that's okay. If you are typing the word hour and you type oat, you can go back and change it to say hour so that it doesn't bug you. But don't go back and change the wording on things. If you finish a paragraph and you're thinking, I could have said that better, that's okay. Say it better when you go back in revisions. Don't stop now. Just keep writing forward. Definitely don't go back and alter big sections of the book. If you have something that you realize is a problem, if you have a plot hole that you recognize, or you realize that you need to add a character in at a certain point, just start writing from that point as if you've already fixed it. Write through the rest of the book, and then when you go back, you can add that character in earlier, you can fix the plot hole earlier. And it's okay to take notes as you're writing. Keep notes about things that you know you want to change in revision. Just don't make those changes until you finish the first draft. This one was also controversial when I first proposed it on Book Talk, and I'm certainly not the first person to propose this kind of stuff, but I think I hit a nerve when I suggested this to people because a lot of people are really attached to the way they write, even if it's causing them to not finish a draft. Now, if you are finishing drafts, if you're able to finish a book and you're able to do it while you're editing as you go, and that's not a problem for you, then this video doesn't apply to you. This is specifically for people who are running into problems. There are a lot of really big authors who do edit as they go. Dean Koontz, for example, sits down, types out a page, and he will edit that page completely through before he moves forward so that when he finishes the first draft of the book, that's basically his last draft. But we are not Dean Koontz, and I'm not talking to the Dean Koontzes of the world right here, as much respect as I have for the man. I'm talking to people who have trouble finishing a draft, and I'm trying to help you through that, so give it a shot. See if this works for you. Now, the fourth tip that I have is the one that's the most controversial when I proposed it on Book Talk, to the point that I had people coming for my throat. And it is to just give this a shot, hear me out. When you're writing your first draft, change your font to Comic Sans and just type in that and see what happens. It doesn't work for everybody, but it does work for me, and it works for a lot of people that I've talked to, a lot of people that I've recommended this to, even people who absolutely hate Comic Sans and would never use it on anything have tried it, and it works. There's something about using Comic Sans when you're drafting that it's almost like magic. It unlocks the word flow, it unlocks the creativity, and it allows you, without being as judgmental about your own writing, to just pour the words out. And I found when I use Comic Sans to write a first draft, the words really do just pour out. And I write so much faster than I do when I'm using a more traditional font, like Times New Roman or Arial or something like that. And I don't know whether it's specifically Comic Sans or if it's just that I am switching to something that's unconventional that does it, but Comic Sans is a lifesaver for me. It has been just a revelation to me, really. My productivity just skyrocketed when I started using Comic Sans. And I was very resistant to it at first. I'm not a fan of Comic Sans. I don't think it's an amazing font by any means. I wouldn't print a book in it, but my first draft, I absolutely use Comic Sans to write that whole thing. I never show it to anybody else because my first draft is just for me. It's for me to have and then to edit and revise. And by the time the revisions are done, by the time my beta readers get the book, it's in a different font. But Comic Sans is something that I encourage you to try, even if you feel like there's no way it's going to work. Give it a shot. It might not work for you, but it does work for a lot of people. So those are 4 tips that potentially could help you get unstuck if you've been having trouble finishing a novel. Don't forget to like this video if any of these tips help you, and drop a comment down below to let me know how it goes, if it has helped your writing process at all, or if you're able to put any of these tips into practice. I'd love to hear from you and hear how it's working out. And also subscribe to me so you won't miss any of my upcoming videos.